Hey everybody, it's Sarah from Roadworthy. Today I am doing, I feel like, the required Midyear Freakout Tag. I was kindly tagged by Kim from Middle of the Book March. So thanks, Kim. This was sort of an interesting experience because I never look back on my reading. Even at the end of the year, I don't look back on my reading and think about, what were the best books that I read this year? I don't. So it was sort of an interesting experience to step back and take a look at what I've read. So first book was first question, first prompt, best book from a repeat author. And this, I'm going to say, is Panenka from Ronan Hession. If you have not read Ronan's books, you should. His first book was Leonard and the Hungry Paul. And Panenka is about Joseph, who has crippling headaches. And he's trying to rebuild his relationship with his daughter and his grandson, who I think is about 7 in the book. But what I love about Ronan's books is they're warm, they're gentle, they're cozy. It's like a literary hug. They seem to reflect real life in ways. The problems aren't necessarily resolved. Um, they're just super satisfying. New prompt two, new release that I want to read. I had to look and see what do I have on hold right now at the library, and one that I'm looking forward to is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. Um, this is 1840s Mexico. There's tensions with the Anglo settlers of the north and vampires, So it's historical fiction. I think there's going to be commentary on colonialism, and it's got vampires. Most anticipated release is prompt number 3. I do not look ahead and see like what's coming in October. I don't. I read Kirkus reviews, so I'm kind of a month ahead. And so I looked. One of the books that I've put on hold that I'm excited about is a short story collection called 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Augustina Maria Bazterrica. I read her debut novel, Tender as the Flesh, when it first came out, and saw her interviewed during COVID. She was a guest for the Texas Book Festival. And that book is similar to Of Cattle and Men, which is a charcoal press book that's going around right now from Ana Paula Maia. That's a Brazilian book, but Tender as the Flesh is sort of the same thing. It's kind of a little bit bonkers, looking at men working in a slaughterhouse in Argentina. I kind of don't want to say too much more. I will say that Bazterrica is a vegetarian, so that might give you a sense of her commentary. But it does have probably the most explicit scene about cattle slaughter that I've ever read. So warnings, it's a little bit disturbing. But again, the book in general was a bit bonkers, and so just based on the title, 19 Claws and a Blackbird, I'm guessing that this short story collection might be a bit bonkers too. So looking forward to that one. Number 4 is biggest disappointment. I have to say it's been Burnham Wood by Eleanor Catton. I DNF'd this book, and I, I I thought the pacing was slow. I thought the villain was like almost like, the mustache twirling stock evil capitalist villain. Um, I just the the three main, the other main characters, I just thought were like immature children, and they just became annoying more than anything else. Um, and I just frankly lost interest and got bored. And after about 100 pages, I was like, you know what, time to go. Biggest surprise is A Rising Man by Abir Mukherjee. This is total mystery, uh, historical mystery. Um, I don't read mysteries. I don't like mysteries. And this is a total mystery. Um, this There's a series of 4 books, and I actually went on and read all 4 books. Um, and I don't read series either, so this is like a double whammy surprise. But this series takes place. This first book starts in 1919 Calcutta, um, and Sam Wyndham is our, detective, and he is sent over from Britain to work in the police department in India, and he's flawed, but there's a lot with sort of the politics and the history and colonialism and relations between the white British and the the native Indian population at this time. There's also a bit about in this series about um, Hindus versus, not versus, but Hindus and Muslims, and in ethnic Chinese living there as well. So it just really gives you a snapshot into what Calcutta might have been like at this time. And again, I found the mysteries enjoyable, and shockingly, I loved this series. Number 6, favorite new author. So I would say, again, the Ronan Hession book just confirmed for me that I will pick up anything that Ronan writes. Love both of his books. Um, I'm still going to stick with Hernan Diaz. I absolutely loved his debut novel, In the Distance, which was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, I don't know, 2017, I don't know, 18, when it was published. Um, and after reading that book, I said, I will read anything that Hernan Diaz writes. And Trust kind of confirmed that for me. I think Trust is a masterpiece of craft, but I didn't necessarily enjoy the reading experience. But again, I thought it was such a great, great book, and so completely different from In the Distance that I'm very curious to read whatever Diaz puts out, because it's going to be completely different from Trust. Number 7 is Fictional Crust. And I'm going to combine this with number 8, favorite character. Fictional crushes are not really my thing. Maybe I'm too old for that. I don't know. But I sort of combined this with number 8 and thought about, who are the characters I want to like? I wish I were friends with. And so I selected Maeve Murray from Factory Girls by Michelle Gallen. I loved Maeve. This book is about a set of three friends in 1994 Dublin who work in a shirt factory for the summer prior to headed off to university. Um, and it's 1994, so there's a lot of sectarian tension. And so in the factory, you have both Protestants and Catholics working in this factory. And as the book goes on, Maeve sort of learns about sort of what's going on in the factory in the larger town. It's sort of coming of age. Um, it's sort of her learning how to stand up for herself, standing up for her friends, but also just a lot of teenage stupidity involving smoking and drinking. I loved Maeve. Number 9 is a book that made you cry, and I selected Juno Loves Legs by Carl Geary. This is about two teens in the 80s growing up on a housing estate in Dublin. Um, they are poor, going to, Catholic school, um, and this book is really about their friendship and the evolution of their friendship. Um, they're both sort of picked on and awkward and humiliated by both their classmates as well as the nuns and the priest who operate the school. Um, some things happen where they separate, but then they come back together towards the end of the book when they are older. Um, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful story about their friendship and the love that they have for one another and the unconditional support they provide one another, the sacrifice that they both make for the other. It's wonderful. Um, and you totally know what's coming at the end. Totally know it. And yet it was heartbreaking when it happened, which I always think is an amazing trick. If the author can still make you feel all the feels, even when you know what's going to happen. So I haven't really heard too much about this book. But again, I'm hoping, I'm wishing that it's something that more people do pick up because it is wonderful. Number 10, a book that made me happy. I have 0 books that fit into this category. I read no romance, no you know, your quintessential summer read. I don't have any of those. So um, I'm hoping that Big Swiss by Jen Began, a book that I am currently reading, is going to fit this bill because as of right now, I can't say I have any books that made me smile this year. And that's clearly something I need to correct for the second half of the year. Number 11, most beautiful book that you've acquired this year. I have a very teeny tiny bookcase. Um, so I do not buy books. Um, I maybe get 10 a year, and I'm working hard to make sure whatever I bring into the house, I've got the same number leaving the house because I just don't have space. Um, so I don't really have an answer for this, but so I wanted to change it to what is the book that I read this year that it's not necessarily the most beautiful cover, but it's the most striking cover. And that is Shit Cassandra Saw by Gwen E. Kirby. This is a short story collection from Kirby, And it was described in Goodreads, I'm going to read this, as Margaret Margaret Atwood meets Buffy in these funny, warm, and furious stories of women at their breaking points, from Hellenic times to today. And I think that's a fair description of this short story collection. I will say most of these stories are two, three, at most like 5 pages. And this is also the book that really made me recognize that I like short stories that are really, really short like that. Um, if they get any longer, more like 10, 15 pages, I feel like I'm reading the introduction to a novel and I want more. So I'm not only does this book have a striking cover, but it's also the book that really helped me hone in on what I might like in my short fiction. Okay, I don't know why the crows are going bonkers. Hopefully, we're not going to have a Tippy Hedren moment here. They're over there, squawking at one another in this tree. Number 12 and number 13, I'm going to combine. Um, so, number 12 is books to read before the end of the year. And number 13 is best book of the year. So, my best book of the year is The Deluge by Stephen Markley. Um, this book needs to be read by more people, period. This is a climate fiction book um, that takes, that starts in 2009 with probably 8 disparate characters, and you sort of see where they are in 2009, and then we start to march forward in time, and you start to see how these characters start to slowly come together and start to circle one another. Their storylines start to converge or interweave, um, and and that's happening at the same time that it's 2009 and we're marching forward very much with real life events. So the election of Trump, the election of Biden, the passage of certain types of legislation, you know, all of this stuff is in the book. And then Markley starts to go into the future. I think this book ends in like 2040, something like that. Um, and so and this book is just masterfully crafted. So not only do you have these storylines slowly coming together, but you also have the plot slowly advancing as the climate crisis continues. And the events that Markley or makes into the future seem so plausible compared to what has just happened that by the time you get to the end of the book, 2030, 2040, it's like, what has happened to the world? But yet there's nowhere that you can point back to where he has jumped the shark. It all seems so logical where the plot of this story ends up and how these stories all converged. And it's this book is long. It's like 900 pages. And he really does need 900 pages to again make the plot of this book logical and seem very realistic. Um, I've seen on Goodreads this book described as dystopian, and I don't think that's a fair description. This book, he is laying out what he believes is a possible future. Um, there are it's I will say that it is it it becomes very hopeful. I was very nervous that this book was going to end like in a horrifying way. Um, I will say Markley believes that there is that the climate crisis presents an opportunity for us to correct some of the ills in modern society. Um, I think check out Markley's author event on the Politics and Prose YouTube channel. I will link that below because I think he really does a good job discussing his passion on this topic, but also discussing the process of writing this book. It is truly, truly masterful. Um, so, because that was my best book of the year, I want to go back and read his book, Ohio. Um, so that is definitely one that I want to read before the end of the year. I have also heard that book is long, but also very, very good. So I'm hoping that Stephen Markley might be a favorite new author for me. The last question is number 14, content creators that I am really enjoying. I want to shout out a couple different creators. One, I want to mention Sarah from Eyes on Indie. Sarah is all about highlighting books from independent publishers, small presses, university presses, and I really appreciate that because I have definitely found some books that I've enjoyed that I might not have otherwise. So I really appreciate Sarah's contributions to the booktube community. She's got an important voice. I also want to mention Belinda from Belinda's Book Nook. I've been watching Belinda for a couple of years, and I just love her chatty, warm, genuine style. She is not a fast reader, so her Friday reads are a little bit what she's reading, but it's the weather, the garden, the dog. It's a what she bought this week. It's just a little mishmash of everything. I feel like it's like when I call my dad on the phone, I get like, here's what's happening in the garden, here's what's happening, in the neighborhood. So I just love her chitty chatty style. I also want to call out Allie from Alice in Pages. Allie is not my generation. But yet she definitely reads things that I wouldn't read. Um, you know, there are some YA things in there. But she does read a lot of literary fiction. She also reads memoirs, nonfiction. She's a little bit all over the place. Allie has autism and she suffers from chronic migraines. What I really love about her channel is, well, her videos are just kind of quirky and fun, but I just appreciate so much of it is her talking about her challenges with migraines, or challenges trying to go back to school, challenges living in Belgium as an American, um, and just her trying to find ways to live and thrive. Making peace with her body and moving on. It's always hopeful, funny, um, just quirky, um, inspiring. Um, I just love the positivity that she exudes despite her chronic illness. Um, so if you've not seen Allie, I encourage you to check her out because she's just a fun um, change of pace in terms of creator content. And again, um, when she does read books that I'm interested in or has read books that I've also read, I agree with a lot of her commentary about those books. So I think she is someone who probably reads some similar books to what you all are reading. So encourage you to give Allie a shot. I will link Allie, Belinda, and Sarah's channels below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you getting this far if you got this far. And I will see you all in the next one. Okay, thanks.